I'm sorry. I'm thinking of how to start this video, how to properly articulate my thread of thoughts to make sure that I communicate exactly what I want to you guys so you can fully understand what I'm saying. So let's get started. Very recently, I've noticed, just as everybody has, that there has been a continuous decline in the mental health of people around the world, especially Gen Z, my generation. Studies show that Gen Z are the most mentally disturbed generation of all time. And one would assume that, typically in a time where there's so much discussion surrounding mental health and, mental health issues, and there's just so much awareness about it, that the general mental health of the population would, be increasing. But unfortunately, the reverse seems to be the case, and I have opinions. So let's talk about it. So the other day, I wasn't even watching. I was bored out of my mind and I didn't have any work to do. So I just thought, you know what, let me just burn time and watch this particular episode of this show, The Idol, that came out. I know, you've probably heard about it. Everybody's been blasting it online, so you can go check it out. I'm just going to take, just a very small excerpt from it and talk about it, because that clip, kick-started the entire thing, this entire thread of thought. So there was one particular scene in this show. Sorry, I forget my words. In this show, and basically what they said was mental health is sexy.
Saying
But she's young, beautiful, and damaged.
And not damaged. She had problems that she overcame beautifully.
okay, the robe, the hospital wristband. I mean, are we romanticizing mental illness?
Absolutely.
And you're fine with that? That's cool.
You people are so out of touch.
Oh, here we go.
You people.
You college-educated internet people.
Okay, yeah, you're criticizing me for going to college.
Oh, will you let people enjoy sex, drugs, and hot girls, okay? Stop trying to cock-block America.
No, Nikki, I'm not some sort of prude. I just don't think that with everything that she has been through, she should be wearing a hospital wristband.
Mental illness is sexy.
No, it's not.
Yeah. If you live in Sioux City, Iowa, you are never gonna meet a girl like Jocelyn. She's not walking down the street. She didn't go to your high school. She doesn't work at the bar or the diner, and she did not marry your best friend. And if on the off chance she did, she is still never, ever gonna fuck you unless she has some very, very serious mental problems. And that right there is why mental illness is sexy.
It's a pretty good point.
Actually, no, she did not make any sensible point whatsoever. Also, I would have taken the side of the guy who was questioning the rationality of romanticizing mental health issues if he hadn't, in the next scene, no, not actually the next scene, the same exact scene, started to advocate for this supposedly mentally ill girl's right to have her teats out in public. Also, the way she phrased that makes me wholly uncomfortable, because it seems to me like what she's saying is the average guy can't ever get a beautiful girl unless the girl is mentally ill, which is quite concerning, actually. Back to the video now. Now, it has been my long-held belief that, like I said, Hollywood has a perverted obsession with mental health issues, and over the course of several years, this obsession has been rebranded and remarketed in so many different ways for it to become palatable to the average human being like you and me. And it said so in that clip where she said, I don't know the name of the character. If she didn't have a mental health issue, she wouldn't be accessible to somebody like you or some such thing. Back in the day, celebrities' mental health issues was masked and rebranded as, one would say, artistic eccentricities and the byproducts of a creative mind. Now you might be looking at me and thinking, oh my god, that is so sus, and that is not it at all. Obviously, that marketing tactic has, expired. So there's a new rebranding strategy out, and it typically takes the form of mental health awareness campaigns. But the problem is, I feel like this process has been kept intentionally inept, in that the first, most talked about, and really only necessary step in this mental health journey is you coming out and saying that you've got a mental health issue or another. And then comes this heavy side of social validation and, propping and all these other things. And what this does is that this system or this process has been shaped in an incentive-driven way that makes it so that people want to have mental health issues. I think we can all agree that a person's first introduction to a concept typically informs their attitude towards it in the long run. And one could, draw a direct line from this point to the current state that we find ourselves, but let me talk about it. For every generation before Gen Z, their introduction to mental health issues typically was the manifestation of mental health issues when it went unchecked, the results of unchecked mental health issues, which usually was homelessness, retardedness, etc. And those things were typically not things that someone would want to aspire to. However, for Gen Z, the first introduction to mental health issues typically is their favorite celebrity coming online, sitting in a well-lit room talking about their experiences or short stint in a rehab facility, etc. I might be sounding like a hater, I promise you I'm not. Here's the thing. Kids are stupid. I don't have anything against kids, but I do feel like kids have a way of interpreting things in a very wrong way, in a very warped way, that could be detrimental to them if it goes unchecked. Now, typically, when a kid sees their favorite celebrity, they try and emulate things or find similarities between their celebrity in order to, feel good about themselves. And typically, these celebrities don't live lifestyles that these kids actually have access to. They don't live those kinds of lifestyles. They live lavish lifestyles. So instead of, striving for, the things that they don't have access to, like the Lamborghini and the mansion and all these other things, these kids typically try and find things that they can relate to. Say their favorite celebrity comes up and talks about their anxiety attacks that, happened, so and so and so and so. The kid in their mind could think, oh my God, I had this feeling of dread because I had a project due that I hadn't done, so therefore I have an anxiety attack. Oh my God, I have the same mental health issue as my favorite celebrity, #anxiety squad, etc. This is not a long stretch. This is not me jumping to conclusions. This is something that I know happens a lot of time. The problem is that emulating or mimicking certain mental health issues traits might actually result in you having those mental health issues. So essentially, you're creating your mental health issues. Okay, here's a clip from Dr. Mike's channel that talks about something very similar.
I am wary of what's called concept creep. So trauma used to mean only physical damage to tissue, and then it was allowed to mean like shell shock. But gradually, the creep has made it to the point where trauma is, I was really upset. She broke up with me and I was traumatized. Yeah. You were upset, but you weren't traumatized. And the reason why I think this is important is because there are feedback effects from labeling. Some very large percentage of young people now believe that they have suffered from trauma, when in fact, by older diagnoses, only 5 or 10% would have been. That extra 40% is at risk. They're now more likely to become depressed and anxious. So we just got to be aware of that.
I'm not saying that there are no people who suffer from these things legitimately. I do think that there are people who suffer legitimately from mental health issues. I'm also not saying that, people who suffer from mental health issues should not talk about it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there seems to be a problem with the message and the messenger, because both things don't go together. Something needs to change, either the messenger or the message that the messenger is given. For example, when a celebrity comes out to talk about their mental health issues, the lifestyle that they live essentially eclipses the actual realities of living with that mental health issue. Now, rather than a celebrity coming out to talk about their mental health issues, I do think it would be a much better solution for them to talk about, say, Sally down the road, who suffered a mental breakdown after having lost her husband, so she could not go to work, then she lost her job. Then she could not keep up with payments because she lost the job, so she got kicked out of her house. And then CPS came over to take her children away because, mental health issues and all. Now, that's a very apt and realistic depiction of what mental health issues can do to you. And in this way, it's not something that is, put behind this filtered lens of, lavish lifestyle and spa retreats, but it's something very raw and realistic. And it's something that I would say gives enough credit, if you will, to just how much damage the mental health issues can do to a person's life. So, in a way, this approach would help bring awareness to mental health issues, help people with mental health issues, but at the same time, discourage people from faking mental health issues, if you will. I find it quite peculiar that although we're discussing mental health and mental health issues, nobody really talks about, the preventative and the curative measures of, mental health issues. People only talk about coming out to admitting that you've got one mental health issue or another. Now, I'm not saying that people with mental health issues should be shamed. That is not what I'm saying. I'm also not saying that celebrities should not come out and talk about their mental health issues. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, since mental health issues are something very sensitive and they should be approached with a certain level of respect, if you will, and care. Mental health issues or mental terms aren't things that you should just throw around or throw on your social media account and put hashtag anxiety squad or hashtag this, that. I find it quite peculiar that, there's so many people just coming out suddenly having these trending mental health issues, and nobody's talking about this, the fact that people just suddenly, spontaneously have, in bracket, the trending mental health issue of the month. Back in the day, I said back in the day, when I was in high school, the trending mental health issue was anxiety and depression, and I promise you every single kid had anxiety and depression. Whether or not they had legitimate reasons to be depressed, it didn't matter. They had anxiety and depression. And most recently, I think there's a new one that swept through the world, and suddenly people who didn't even know about this particular mental health issue suddenly had it the next day after it trended. My friend had ADHD or ADD, I'm not quite sure. I'm not going to pretend like I knew all these terms. I don't. But I do know that one time ADHD, I think, was trending on TikTok. And friends that I knew for sure that did not have this particular illness suddenly had their ADHD acting up the next day. And I'm like, God, what are you talking about? You and I both know that we did not know this yesterday. We did not even know that this term existed yesterday. So how the hell can you suddenly have, mental health issues? I feel like it's very dangerous for mental health issues to be trivialized to the point of being seen as just a hashtag, if you will, or a social media label. Because mimicking these mental health symptoms are very detrimental because they might actually become real. So that is something we should be talking about. That's something I think that we should be talking about, which is people's propensity to mimic mental health issues and the resultant problems that come up after that. So yeah, I do think that my generation is, I would say, overly obsessed with mental health issues, and no, not for the right reasons. They're not looking at mental health issues and seeing something that needs to be addressed. Rather, they're looking at mental health issues and seeing things that they want to aspire to because, say, their favorite celebrity has, one mental health issue or the other that they've come out and talked about. So I do think that mental health issues should be approached with a certain degree of, care and respect and understanding, if you will. So I don't think that, talking about mental health issues with children that clearly don't have any mental health issues should, be a thing. Rather, let's talk about mental fortitude and all the things that we can do to build mentally sound minds, if you will, if that's a thing. Does that make any sense? So rather than talking or concentrating on mental health issues and mental health problems, first of all, especially to young kids, let's talk about mental fortitude. Let's talk about practices that we can use to keep a strong mind and maintain discipline and, build strong character. That way, we end up having a population that all understands mental health issues, respects everybody, regardless of their mental state, if you will. So yeah. I also find it quite peculiar that mental health issues are being used as a crutch, if you will, to avoid responsibility for bad behavior. I have seen this all over social media, people who lose their minds in cafes and, act out and treat people with so much disrespect, and they get confronted and they go, oh, I've got anxiety or I've got some mental health issue. You can't talk to me like that because, I got a mental health problem or something. And I feel like this has, become an escape, and it has created an avenue for people who act inexcusably to have an excuse for their inexcusable actions. Okay. But do let me know your thoughts there. Do you think I'm reaching with, thinking that Hollywood has directly or indirectly influenced the rapid increase in mental health problems and issues within Gen Z? Or do you think it's a valid point, and do you think that there are any things we can do to, resolve this problem? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!